Joe was a kind-hearted little boy who loved animals. Every day he would visit the park near his home, where he fed the birds and watched butterflies dance in the air. He dreamed of having a pet of his own, but his parents said he was too young. One afternoon, as Joe played by the swings, he heard a soft sob coming from behind a bush. He followed the sound and found a small, cold pup with big hazel eyes. The pup was scared and hungry. "Oh, where did you come from?" Joe asked gently. He reached out his hand, and the pup sniffed it before giving it a tiny lick. Joe carefully picked up Pup and wrapped him in his scarf to keep him warm. "You must be lost. Don't worry, I'll get you home." Joe knew that someone must be missing their pup. He asked people in the park if they had seen anyone looking for a lost pup. He spoke to Miss Pond, who was sitting on the bench knitting. "Miss Pond, have you seen anyone looking for a lost pup?" "No, but that is a sweet little pup," she said. Next, Joe asked the ice cream man, Mr. Ray. "No, I haven't seen anyone looking for a pup, but you might try checking the board near the park entrance," he suggested. Joe ran to the board, hoping to find a missing pup sign, but there was nothing there. The pup whimpered and snuggled closer to him. "Don't worry, little one. We'll get you home," Joe said. Joe took the pup home and told his mom. She agreed that the pup could stay for one night while they searched for its owner. Joe fed the pup some warm milk and made a cozy bed with a soft blanket. The pup wagged its tail happily and licked Joe's cheek. "You're such a sweet little pup," Joe giggled. "I'll call you Bud for now." At night, Bud curled up beside Joe, and Joe felt a deep sense of happiness. He wished he could keep the pup forever, but he knew the right thing to do was to find its real owner. The next day, Joe and his mom took Bud to the vet to check if the pup had a chip. The vet scanned Bud and found that he belonged to the Rope family who lived a few doors away. Joe felt happy and sad. He was glad that Bud would be reunited with his family, but he also knew he would miss him. When they arrived at the Rope house, a little girl named Anna opened the door. The moment she saw Bud, she burst into tears of joy. "Bud, you're home!" Bud wagged his tail and jumped into Anna's arms. It was clear that they loved each other. "Thank you so much for finding him," Anna's mother said. "We were so worried." Joe smiled, even though he felt a little sad inside. "I'm glad he's safe and happy." Anna's mother said, "You have such a kind heart, Joe. If you ever want to visit Bud, you're always welcome." Anna grinned. "Maybe you can get a pup of your own." Joe's mom looked over and said, "You did show some responsibility. Maybe it's time we talk about getting a pet." Joe's heart filled with hope. He had learned that kindness always comes back in wonderful ways. As he waved goodbye to Bud, he knew that someday he would have a furry friend of his own. Luna loved looking at the stars. Every night she sat by her window with her telescope, gazing up at the twinkling, glowing sky.
"I wish I could visit the stars someday," Luna whispered before bed.
One evening, as Luna was stargazing, something strange happened. A bright light zipped across the sky, and then plop, something small and glowing landed in her backyard.
What was that? Luna grabbed her flashlight and hurried outside.
In the grass lay a tiny shimmering star. It wobbled as it tried to float back into the sky, but it only managed a weak flicker.
"Oh no," Luna said softly. "Are you hurt?" The star twinkled sadly. "I'll help you," Luna promised. She carefully picked up the star and placed it in a cozy shoebox lined with her softest blanket. "Don't worry," she whispered. "We'll get you home."
The next morning, Luna told her best friend, Kai, about the star.
"A real star?" Kai's eyes widened. "That's amazing." "We have to get it back in the sky," Luna said.
Together, they carried the shoebox to the tallest hill in town. Luna gently held the star up high, but it barely flickered.
"Maybe it's too tired to fly," Kai said. Luna nodded. "We need to make it stronger."
They tried feeding the star things they thought might help, Glow sticks, glitter, even some sparkly lemonade, but nothing seemed to work. I don't think stars eat snacks, Luna sighed. Just then, Luna remembered something her grandma once told her. Stars shine brightest when they feel loved. I have an idea, Luna said.
That night, Luna and Kai gathered everyone in the neighborhood. They handed out flashlights, lanterns, and glow bracelets.
Let's fill the night sky with light, Luna called.
Everyone switched on their flashlights and mobile phone lights, pointing them high into the air. The backyard twinkled like a galaxy. The little star quivered in its box. Then flicker, flicker, flash! It glowed brighter and brighter until it floated out of Luna's hands and into the sky.
You did it, Kai cheered.
The star twirled happily, showering the sky with sparkling trails of light. It twinkled one last time as if to say, "Thank you," before rejoining the other stars. From that night on, Luna knew that even the smallest star could shine bright, with just a little love and kindness. And every time she looked up at the sky, she saw her special star twinkling just a little brighter than the rest. Arlo the raccoon loved sandwiches more than anything in the world. He loved peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, grilled cheese sandwiches, and even cucumber sandwiches with the crusts cut off. But his absolute favorite was a triple-stacked, crunchy lettuce, juicy tomato, and extra cheesy sandwich on warm toasty bread. Arlo had spent all morning making the perfect sandwich. He carefully stacked the ingredients, just the right amount of cheese, just the right amount of crispiness. He even cut it into 2 perfect triangles, because everyone knew sandwiches tasted better that way. He placed his masterpiece on a plate, turned around to grab some lemonade, and poof! The sandwich was gone. Arlo's eyes widened. He looked left, then right, then under the table. No sandwich. He even sniffed the air, but all he smelled was toasty bread. "Who stole my sandwich?" Arlo cried. This was a serious mystery, and Arlo, being a raccoon of great detective skills, mostly from reading comic books, knew exactly what to do. He grabbed his magnifying glass, put on his detective hat, and got to work. Arlo crouched down and spotted a single lonely crumb on the floor. Then another, then another. "Aha!" Arlo whispered. "The thief must have left a trail." He followed the tiny crumbs across the kitchen, through the living room, and out the back door. The crumbs led straight to a shady-looking squirrel sitting on a tree stump, munching on a suspiciously cheesy-looking snack. Arlo crossed his arms and said, "All right, Asher, please hand over my sandwich." Asher looked up, his cheeks stuffed full, and said, My sandwich," Arlo repeated. "You ate it, didn't you?" Asher swallowed and shook his head. "Nope, this is my own sandwich." He held up a half-eaten sandwich that did look very similar to Arlo's, but, "Wait a second," Arlo said. "Yours has pickles. Mine definitely didn't have pickles." "See? Not guilty," Asher said, taking another bite. Arlo sighed. "Fine. But if you didn't take my sandwich, then who did?" Arlo followed the trail of crumbs a little further and found a bright blue feather. He gasped, "I know who this belongs to." He raced to find Ivy the blue jay, who was perched on the fence, whistling a cheerful tune. "Ivy, you sneaky bird," Arlo said, wagging his finger. He said, "I found your feather near the last crumb of my sandwich. Confess." Ivy blinked. "Confess to what?" "Stealing my sandwich," Arlo exclaimed. Ivy ruffled her feathers and said, "Arlo, please. I only eat worms and berries. Do I look like I'd steal a sandwich?" Arlo thought for a second. He had to admit, Ivy wasn't much of a sandwich fan. Then why was your feather right next to the crumb trail? Arlo asked. Oh, that, Ivy said. I was flying by and I saw someone run past with a very delicious-looking sandwich. Arlo gasped. You saw the thief? Ivy nodded. Yup, it was someone with big ears and a fluffy tail. Arlo's eyes narrowed. That sounds like... Arlo raced through the yard, looking for someone with big ears and a fluffy tail. That's when he spotted something else, muddy paw prints leading straight into the garden. Oh ho, now I've got you, Arlo said, following the tracks. The tracks led him right to Rory. Rory, the golden retriever from next door, was happily burying something in the garden. Arlo stomped over. Rory, what exactly are you burying? Rory's tail wagged. Oh, just a little snack I found, Arlo gasped. My sandwich. Rory tilted his head. Huh? Oh no, I found this half-eaten bone near the fence. He dug it up to show Arlo, wagging his tail proudly. Arlo groaned. Then who took my sandwich? Rory thought for a second. Oh, I did see someone running away with something yummy. Small paws, fast feet, really sneaky. Arlo's detective brain went into overdrive. Small paws, fast feet, sneaky. Oh no, Arlo whispered. It can't be. Arlo stormed back inside the house, past the kitchen, past the living room, and into the little corner where Sebastian, his own little brother, was sitting with an empty plate and a very guilty look on his face. Sebastian! Arlo gasped. It was you all along. Sebastian's eyes darted left and right. Define you? Arlo groaned. Sebastian, why did you steal my sandwich? Sebastian squirmed. Okay. I thought it was my sandwich. And by the time I realized... Well, it was really good, Arlo. Arlo sighed. He couldn't believe he had solved the mystery, only to find out his own brother was the thief. But then, Sebastian did something surprising. He held out a brand new sandwich and said, I felt bad, so I made you another one, extra cheesy, just the way you like it. Arlo blinked. You made me a new sandwich? Sebastian nodded. And I may have added some cookies too. You know, as an apology snack. Arlo grinned. Well, I do like cookies. Sebastian laughed. And sandwiches? Arlo took a big bite. Definitely sandwiches. As they sat and ate together, Arlo realized something. Even though his first sandwich had mysteriously vanished, something even better had happened. He got to spend time with his brother, learned to solve a mystery, learned that you shouldn't jump to conclusions, and, most importantly, he still got a sandwich in the end. One chilly evening, Jo walked past the glowing windows of Sun's supermarket with her mum. As they strolled by, she spotted something odd. A bright orange carrot waving its leafy top at her. She blinked and rubbed her eyes. Could she have imagined it? Curious, Jo tugged her mum's sleeve. Can I peek inside for just a moment, please? She asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Her mum glanced over and nodded. As Jo tiptoed into the supermarket, something magical happened. The lights dimmed, and the fruits and vegetables sprang to life. Apples rolled along the floor, chatting happily, and cucumbers laughed as they played hopscotch with lemon slices. A zucchini zoomed past her on a tiny cart, and an onion sang a sweet, tearful tune. Jo's jaw dropped in surprise. Hello there, a red tomato called out as it came toward her. We don't get visitors like you often. Welcome to the magical market. Jo grinned. This is amazing. But what's going on over there? She pointed to a fuss near the banana stand. Two bananas were arguing. One, with a shiny yellow peel, yelled, "I deserve the spotlight. Everyone wants me because I'm perfect." The other, slightly bruised and brown, huffed, "That's not fair. I may have spots, but I'm still sweet and full of flavor. People love me too." The other fruits looked worried, unsure how to handle the argument. Even the pineapples, known for their calm wisdom, stayed quiet. Jo stepped forward, her heart pounding. "Excuse me," she said kindly, "what's the problem?" The shiny banana crossed its arms. "I don't want to share the fruit basket with this bruised banana. It'll make me look bad." "That's not true," the brown-spotted banana protested. "I may look different, but I'm just as good." Jo knelt down and said, "You know, every fruit has its own special role. Shiny banana, you're great for display, but bruised banana can be turned into delicious banana bread or smoothies. If you share the basket, people can enjoy both of you. It's not about being the same, it's about working together to make people happy." The bananas paused and thought about it. The shiny banana nodded. "You're right. I didn't think of it that way. I'm sorry for being mean." The bruised banana smiled, its spots gleaming under the store lights. "And I'm sorry for calling you selfish. Let's share." The other fruits cheered. The bananas high-fived with their peels, and the zucchini did a little victory lap on its cart. Jo giggled, feeling a warm glow in her heart. Just then, the lights flickered, signaling that it was time for Jo to leave. The tomato waved. "Thank you, Jo. You reminded us how important sharing and forgiveness are. We won't forget this night." As Jo stepped outside to join her mom, she couldn't stop smiling. She felt like she had made a difference, not just for the bananas but for all the magical fruits and veggies. And as they walked home, Jo realized that kindness and understanding can make even the most unlikely friendships grow. Deep in the heart of the jungle, where the trees swayed gently and the river sparkled in the sunlight, lived a young elephant named Anastasia. Anastasia was kind, playful, and always ready to help her friends. But there was one thing that made Anastasia sad. Every year, during the rainy season, the little animals of the jungle could not cross the river to visit each other. The water became too high, and the current too strong. It really felt impossible to cross because of the fear of drowning. One day, Anastasia stood by the riverbank and watched her friends on the other side. The monkeys waved from the trees, the deer looked longingly across the water, and the little brown and white rabbits twitched their noses in disappointment. Anastasia sighed. "I wish there was a way for everyone to be together, even when the river is high." That night, as Anastasia lay under the stars, an idea popped into her head. "I am big and strong. Maybe I can help build a bridge," she thought excitedly. The next morning, it was nice and sunny. The birds were chirping. Anastasia decided to gather her friends to make an announcement. "I have an idea," she trumpeted. "Let's build a bridge so we can always visit each other no matter how high the river gets." The animals cheered. "But how will we do it?" asked Leo the leopard. "If we all work together we can find a way," Anastasia said with determination. The animals set off to gather materials. The beavers chewed down strong, long branches, the birds collected various vines, and the monkeys tied everything together with their nimble hands, swinging from side to side. Anastasia used her strength to lift the heaviest logs and place them carefully over the water. As days went by, the bridge started to take shape and started to look like a bridge. But as they worked, the sky darkened, and the rain began to fall. The animals were worried. "What if the bridge isn't finished before the river rises?" asked a tiny mouse. Anastasia smiled reassuringly. "Then we will keep trying. Together we can do anything." After days of hard work, the bridge was finally completed. Just as Anastasia placed the last log, the rain stopped and the sun peeked through the clouds. A beautiful bright rainbow stretched across the sky, casting brilliant colors over the new bridge. "Look, it's a rainbow bridge," cheered a parrot. The animals clapped and danced with joy. They took turns crossing the bridge, hugging and laughing as they reunited with their friends. Anastasia beamed with pride. From that day on, the Rainbow Bridge stood strong, a symbol of kindness, teamwork, and unconditional love. The jungle animals never had to worry about being apart again. As Anastasia watched her friends happily playing together, she realized something very important. When friends work together, they can overcome any challenge, and most of all, love and kindness will always build bridges, even in the toughest times. Sammy loved socks, striped socks, polka-dotted socks, socks with dancing dinosaurs and ones that glowed in the dark. His drawer was a rainbow jungle of cotton coziness. But Sammy had one big sock problem. They kept disappearing. Every laundry day he lost at least one sock. His mom called it the Great Sock Mystery. Sammy had a different theory though. "They're not lost," he whispered one night. "They've gone on a mission." The next morning, Sammy decided he'd go on a mission too. A sock mission, that is. He packed his backpack with multiple spare socks, a notebook, 2 cookies, and a flashlight, just in case. He waved goodbye to his puzzled cat Marshmallow and set off down Strawberry Lane. His first stop was the park. On a chilly bench sat Mr. Howard, the friendly man who always fed the birds. Sammy noticed his shoes. They were torn and sockless. "Do your feet get cold?" Sammy asked. Mr. Howard chuckled and replied, "Sometimes socks sure would be nice though." Sammy pulled out a thick blue pair of socks with yellow stars and said, "These are lucky star socks." Mr. Howard's eyes sparkled and he said, "Then I'll be the luckiest bird feeder in town." Next, Sammy spotted a little girl at the bus stop sniffling. Her shoes were soaked and her feet were bare. "Want a pair?" Sammy offered, holding out some green socks with tiny yellow suns. The little girl grinned and slipped them on and said, "Toasty." By noon, Sammy had given away 8 pairs of socks. He'd met an elderly woman who used socks as mittens, a boy with holes in his shoes, and a jogger who had wet socks as he stepped into a puddle. With each gift, Sammy felt warmer on the inside. But his backpack was now empty. As he walked home, light drizzle began to fall. Sammy didn't mind. He was already planning his next mission. That night, as he folded the laundry with his mum, she held up a lonely sock. "Another one vanished," she laughed. Sammy smiled. Maybe it found someone who needed it more. The next morning, Sammy made a sign and taped it to the mailbox. It read, "Sock mission in progress. Donations welcome. Clean socks only, please." Soon, neighbors started dropping off colorful socks. Big ones, small ones, light-colored ones, dark-colored ones, fuzzy ones, even silly ones with googly eyes. Sammy washed and sorted them all, adding tags that said, "A little warmth for your day." Every weekend, he walked through the park, the library, and the downtown bus stop, handing out socks with a smile. He was now known as the kind sock kid by the town people. But Sammy didn't really care about his fame that he had achieved. He only cared that people's toes were warm and that their hearts were warm too, because he'd learned something simple but very powerful. Even the smallest things like socks can make the biggest difference when shared with a little love. In the cozy town of Jollyville, laughter filled the air like bubbles on a windy day. People giggled on park benches, snorted in cafes, and chuckled on their way to school. But no one knew the secret behind all the silliness until one very peculiar Tuesday. You see, hidden under flower pots, inside mailboxes, and beneath curly garden hedges lived the Giggle Gremlins, tiny, ticklish creatures with wild hair, banana peel shoes, and voices that squeaked like rubber ducks. Their job? To make people laugh. A noble mission indeed. There were 4 main Giggle Gremlins: Pip, the prank planner; Nib, the nose honker; Zop, the master of zany dance moves; Lulu, the queen of silly sound effects. Together, they were the invisible team responsible for lost whoopee cushions, backward hats, and mysteriously giggly goats. One morning, the Giggle Gremlins gathered under a toadstool. "Friends," said Pip with a wink, "our work has become predictable." "Predictably hilarious," Zop said, doing a cartwheel into a shrub. "But what if people stop laughing?" Pip asked. "We need to raise the bar of bonkers." Nib scratched his fuzzy chin. "Let's pull off the ultimate prank." Lulu blew a raspberry. "Let's make Jollyville laugh harder than ever." And so, they hatched a plan called Operation Giggle Storm. The Giggle Gremlins zipped around the town that night like glitter in a wind tunnel. They replaced doorknobs with jelly, made traffic lights, played disco music, and swapped the mayor's speech notes with a recipe for pickle popsicles. The next morning, Jollyville erupted in confusion and laughter. Children arrived at school to find their chairs had googly eyes. The librarian's voice came out in rhymes. Even Grandma Tilly's knitting needles clicked out a tap dance. At first, it was all giggles and grins. But by lunch, the laughter was wearing thin. "Who put syrup in my shampoo?" cried Mr. Button the baker. "My lunchbox mooed at me," shouted Ellie, a second grader. "Why are my socks in my cereal?" moaned the mayor. The Giggle Gremlins peeked from behind a bench, waiting for the laughs. But instead, they heard groans, grumbles, and frustrated sighs. "Oh no," whispered Lulu. "Did we go too far?" "Maybe we forgot the golden rule," said Pip quietly. "Which one?" asked Zop. "Kindness before comedy," responded Pip. That night, the Giggle Gremlins held a serious meeting over marshmallow tea. "We were so excited to be funny," said Pip. "We forgot that not everyone laughs at the same things as we do." "We wanted to spread joy," Lulu added, "but we ended up making a mess." Nib nodded. "Time to make it right." And so began Operation Smile Fix. The Giggle Gremlins cleaned the jelly doorknobs, returned the socks, rewrote the mayor's speech, with only one pickle joke, and even baked apology cupcakes with glittery frosting and little smiley faces. The next day, the town woke up to notes on their doors. The notes said, "Sorry if we caused a frown. We're the Giggle Gremlins from Silly Town. We only meant to spread good cheer, not syrup in your shampoo, dear. So, here's a cake and shiny sticker. We promise next time we'll think quicker." The townsfolk read the notes. They smiled, then they chuckled, then they laughed. Grandma Tilly chuckled so hard she nearly tangled with her teapot. The mayor made the apology cupcakes part of Jollyville's annual Giggle Gratitude Day. And the Giggle Gremlins? They kept making people laugh, but now with care, kindness, and a lot of love. Zop became the official silly dance teacher. Lulu added sound effects to bedtime stories. Pip and Nib created a Choose Your Prank booth, where kids could opt in or out. By the end of their adventure, the Giggle Gremlins discovered something very important. Laughter is magical, but even more powerful when shared with respect, kindness, and a sprinkle of responsibility. Being funny is wonderful, but making sure others feel safe and happy is even better. So, whenever you laugh so hard your belly hurts, remember it might just be a Giggle Gremlin nearby, making sure the world smiles with love, not just silliness. Beatrice Sparkle loved hats. Big hats, small hats, hats with ribbons, hats with feathers, she had them all. But nothing compared to the hat she found one chilly morning at Mr. Wyatt's Wacky Wonder shop. It was tall, purple, and sparkly, with a little golden star at the top. Beatrice gasped. "It looks magical," Mr. Wyatt chuckled. "That hat, my dear, is very special. It only works if you believe in it." Beatrice's eyes widened. "Wait, it actually does magic." Wyatt winked. Only one way to find out. Beatrice grabbed the hat, plopped it onto her head, and the adventure began. At dinner that night, Beatrice faced a terrible problem. Her plate was piled high with green beans. Yuck, she mumbled. She poked them with her fork, hoping they'd disappear. Then she remembered. The magic hat, Beatrice whispered. Green beans, go away. Hide from me until, May. She tapped the hat, and poof, the green beans vanished. Beatrice gasped. It worked! Her little brother Elliot stared. Where'd they go? Beatrice grinned. Magic! But suddenly, splat! The green beans rained down onto Dad's head. Beatrice! Dad yelped. Beatrice exclaimed. Oops! Maybe the hat needed a little practice. The next morning, Beatrice faced her next problem. Her room looked like a tornado had exploded. Mum peeked inside and gasped, Beatrice, you have to clean this up before school. Beatrice groaned, but that will take forever. Then she had an idea. She popped on the magic hat to cast a spell. Messy mess, fly away, clean up so fast and save my day. She waved her hands and whoosh! Books flew onto the shelves, clothes zipped into drawers. Even her toys marched into the toy box all by themselves. Beatrice jumped with joy. This hat is the best ever. But suddenly, whoosh! The hat kept going. Elliot's room cleaned itself. The bathroom cleaned itself. The dog had a bath and was washed. Mum's hair got vacuumed. Beatrice! Mum shrieked as her hair stood up like a frightened poodle. Beatrice yanked off the hat. Everything stopped. Maybe she needed to word her spells more carefully. At school, Beatrice's best friend, Penelope, was panicking. I forgot to do my spelling homework, Penelope whispered. Mrs. Franklin is going to give me 1,000,000 extra worksheets. Beatrice knew exactly how to help. She slipped on her hat and whispered, words and letters, quick, oh please, finish Penelope's work with ease. Her hat wiggled, her hat sparkled, and poof! Penelope's paper was instantly filled in. Beatrice! Penelope gasped. It worked! Beatrice grinned. Told you magic! But then, Mrs. Franklin sniffed the air and said, I sense some mischief. She stomped over, grabbed the paper, and gasped. Penelope, she said, why did you write your spelling words in pudding? Penelope and Beatrice looked at the paper. Yup, every letter was made of chocolate pudding. How delicious! But, oops, maybe magic wasn't always the best idea. That afternoon, when Beatrice got home, Elliot came running up to Beatrice. I want to do magic too, he begged. Make me fly. Beatrice hesitated. I don't know if that's a good idea. Please? Elliot gave her his biggest puppy dog eyes. Beatrice sighed. Okay, but just a tiny spell. She put on the hat to cast a spell. Little brother, small and light, float up high, but not too bright. Elliot whooshed into the air. He laughed. Whee! It worked! But then, uh-oh, Elliot kept floating higher and higher. Beatrice, help! He shouted. Beatrice panicked. She grabbed a jump rope, threw it up, and lassoed his ankle. Elliot giggled. Again! Beatrice shook her head. Nope, no more floating spells. That night, Beatrice sat on her bed, staring at the hat. Sure, magic was fun, but it also caused a lot of trouble. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't need magic for everything. She took a deep breath, put on the hat, and whispered, This hat was fun, a great delight, but I think it's time to say goodnight. The hat twinkled and sparkled, and then, poof, it disappeared. Beatrice smiled. She had learned something really important that day. She actually didn't need any magic. She could clean her room, do her homework, and help people all by herself. But she might still use magic to get rid of green beans, just in case. In the middle of the forest, there stood a very old and very wise tree. Its branches stretched towards the sky, and its leaves sparkled like gold in the glorious sunlight. This was no ordinary tree, it was a wishing tree. The wishing tree had a special sort of magic. If someone made a wish with a kind heart, the tree would grant it. But, if someone wished selfishly, their wish would never come true. Bobbington, a small and curious rabbit, lived near the wishing tree. He had heard the stories but had never made a wish himself. On a beautiful, bright and sunny morning, he decided to visit the wishing tree to make a wish with a kind heart. "Hi, wishing tree," Bobbington said, looking up at the long branches. "I wish for a big, juicy carrot." The tree rustled its leaves but did not grant the wish. Bobbington sighed and sat beneath it. Bobbington then heard sniffles. He turned and saw his friend Ariana the turtle, looking very sad. "What's wrong, Ariana?" Bobbington asked. "I lost my way home," Ariana sniffed. "I wish I knew which way to go." Bobbington thought for a moment and said, "Don't worry, I'll help you find your way home." Together they walked through the forest. Bobbington used his little nose to sniff out familiar scents and led Ariana safely back to her pond. "Thank you, Bobbington, you're so kind," Ariana said, giving him a small flower as a gift. That night, as Bobbington was about to sleep, he found a big, juicy carrot waiting outside his burrow. The carrot looked very shiny and tasty. He gasped in delight. "The wishing tree granted my wish after all," Bobbington whispered, nibbling on his carrot happily. The next day, Bobbington saw Eduardo the squirrel looking fairly worried. "What's wrong, Eduardo?" Bobbington asked. "I lost my walnuts, and I have nothing to eat," Eduardo said, his tail drooping. Bobbington didn't hesitate. He hopped away and found some fallen walnuts under a nearby walnut tree. He carried them back to Eduardo with a big smile. "Here you go, Eduardo. Now you have plenty to eat." Eduardo's eyes lit up. "That's fantastic. Thank you, Bobbington." That evening, Bobbington saw a family of tiny mice shivering in the cold. They had no home, and the wind was blowing through the trees. Bobbington quickly gathered soft leaves, twigs, and moss. "Here, this will help keep you warm," he said, building a little shelter for them. The mice snuggled together inside, and one of them blew a victory sound on his tiny trumpet to celebrate the warmth. They then smiled at Bobbington. "You are so thoughtful." "Thank you, Bobbington," they squeaked happily. That evening, Bobbington returned to the wishing tree. "I think I understand now," he said. "The best wishes are the ones that help others." The wishing tree's leaves rustled in agreement, and a soft golden light surrounded Bobbington. From that day on, Bobbington didn't wish for himself anymore. He used his kindness to make others happy instead, and in return, happiness always found its way back to him. Jan, a young girl, had a mirror. It wasn't a fancy one, just a small, round one with a wooden frame and tiny painted flowers. But it sat right on her desk, and she looked into it every morning. "Ready to shine?" she'd whisper with a wink. Jan believed in something magical. What you show the world is what the world shows back to you. If she smiled, someone usually smiled back. If she offered kindness, kindness usually found its way back to her. Her mirror reminded her to begin each day with those little choices. One Monday morning, she noticed her brother Pete stomping around the kitchen. "Huh, my shoelace broke again," he grumbled. Jan looked into her mirror, took a deep breath, and packed an extra pair of her own shoelaces into Pete's bag. He didn't notice at first, but when his other lace snapped at school, he was surprised to find her note, which read, "Thought you might need these. Love, Jan." That afternoon, Pete gave Jan the biggest hug without being asked. The next day, Jan's friend Naomi was frowning during lunch. "My drawing got ripped," Naomi said. "It was my best one." Jan paused, then tore out a clean sheet from her own art pad and said, "Let's draw new ones, together." Naomi's eyes lit up. Each day, Jan checked her mirror. Each day, she tried to reflect something kind. But on Friday, Jan had a rough morning. She spilled grape juice on her shirt, forgot to do her homework, and stepped in some gum. When she sat down at her desk, she stared into the mirror and frowned. I don't feel like shining today. And then, her mom walked in. She knelt beside Jan and held up her own mobile phone, using the selfie camera as a mirror. I think your shine is still there, she said, but maybe it just needs a little help from others today. At school, Jan felt quiet, but then something interesting happened. Naomi offered Jan half of her cookie. Pete left her a sticky note in her lunchbox with a smiley face. Her teacher said, "You look like someone who brightens rooms." Slowly but surely, bit by bit, her light returned. That evening, Jan stared at her mirror again. She realized something important. Some days you reflect kindness. Other days, you need someone else's reflection to remind you of who you are. She added a sticker to the back of her mirror. Shine out, shine in. From that day forward, Jan carried her mirror in her backpack, not to check her hair, but to remind herself that the world reflects what you bring to it, but it also helps you remember your glow when you forget.